Many people find it hard to believe that gladiators in ancient Rome were actually slaves. These men were made into slaves by the Roman Empire, either by being captured in war or born to a mother who was a slave. Once a person became a gladiator, they were not allowed to own property, could not testify in court, and were forced to live according to the rules set by their masters. Some gladiators were free men who chose to become one for a quick buck, but most of them had no choice at all. The glory days of the gladiators happened during the 1st century BC and the 2nd century AD. That's also when most of the famous gladiators we know today come from. The most popular place to watch a gladiator fight was the Colosseum. It had 80 rows of seats with 50,000 to 80,000 spectators, but there were also many other places where these fights could happen, like the Circus Maximus or even private villas. Sometimes they would perform outside of Rome too. In those cases, the emperor or magistrate would erect a wooden or stone structure with a floor and seating areas. The performances were more like traveling shows with only a few days of fighting. The word gladiator comes from the Latin word gladere, which means to be or to strike with a sword. The fighters were called gladiatores, which is where we get the name. But the word gladiator wasn't used until the late Republic. Other names were used before that, like murmillo or hoplo. Murmillo, the term used for a heavily armored fighter, may have been the first name for a type of gladiator, and it might have been used as early as the 3rd century BC. Gladiator wasn't just a job, it was a way of life. A gladiator's training started at a young age and lasted for years. They learned how to use different weapons and fight different kinds of enemies. They also had to be in top physical shape, so they did lots of running, jumping and weightlifting. There were many schools where young people could learn about gladiators. The most important thing was learning how to use a sword and shield well. Each gladiator had their own style of fighting, just like boxers now. Some were fast and light on their feet, while others were strong and knew how to take a hit. Most gladiators were between 4 feet 11 inches and 5 feet, 6 inches tall, though some were taller. They were usually fit and strong, but not fat. The Romans liked their fighters to be lean and mean. Some gladiators weighed as little as 120 pounds, but others were close to 200 pounds. The main goal was to train new recruits to be the best fighters they could be. Fighters were divided into groups based on how big and heavy their armor was. This determined how much they weighed and how tall they were. In ancient Rome, slavery was common, and gladiators were considered property. Slaves were treated like objects and didn't have any rights. They were bought, sold, and given as gifts. The owner had complete control over the gladiator's life and could punish them in any way they wanted. When the gladiator was done fighting, they had to give all their earnings to their master. Even if they won a lot of money, it didn't matter because the master got it all. Even though gladiators were under a lot of pressure to win, sometimes the crowds got angry and turned against them. If this happened, the gladiator might get hurt badly or even die. Because of this, gladiators sometimes made secret plans to escape. Some planned to run away together, but most of them failed. People say that over 1 million gladiators died in the Colosseum. Most of them lost their lives in battles with wild animals. One of the most famous gladiators from ancient Rome was Spartacus, who lived between 111 and 70 BC. He was born in Thrace, but became a gladiator after being taken captive by the army. Spartacus led a revolt against the Romans in which he took part in more than 60 fights. He never lost a battle. He eventually became a legendary hero for slaves because he helped them see that they could beat the Romans. Around the year 70, there was a fierce gladiator named Titus Flavius. He was good with the sword and shield, and his record shows that he won 40 out of 50 games. Another well-known gladiator was Milo, who was born on the island of Crete. He was a handsome man with perfect skin and hair. Milo fought in about 500 public events and won most of them. He only lost a few times and was later freed by his master. After retiring, Milo became an actor and then a charioteer. During the Neronian era, there were two groups of gladiators who were very well known. The retiari were expert net throwers. They were agile and quick, and their fighting style was graceful to watch. On the other hand, the Samnites were brawlers, and they liked to fight up close and personal. Both types of gladiators were very popular with the audience and often had large followings. Gladiators in ancient Rome were highly skilled fighters who came from different parts of the empire. Many gladiators were slaves or prisoners of war, but some were free men who chose to fight for money. They trained for years to be experts in weapons and combat, and followed a strict diet and exercise routine to be in top fighting condition. Spectators loved watching gladiators fight against each other and against wild animals. Their popularity grew, and so did their status. Many gladiators became famous throughout the Roman world. During the gladiator games, the audience would cheer and scream as the fighters clashed in the arena. Some gladiators became famous for their skills and bravery, like Spartacus, who led a revolt against the Romans. Others were famous for their fighting style, like the retiari, who were great at throwing nets, and the Samnites, who were skilled brawlers. No matter who was fighting, the crowd loved the excitement and danger of the games. They were eager to see the gladiators do battle and cheer for their favorites. There are many stories about gladiators from ancient Rome, and some people think they were real heroes. These fighters faced dangerous wild animals like lions, tigers, and elephants, and fought bravely to survive. Some gladiators were really good and never backed down from a challenge. The most popular gladiators were brave and skilled fighters who were admired by the crowds. Some gladiators were so well-liked that they became stars. The Romans loved watching them fight and would cheer loudly for their favorite gladiators. When a gladiator was done fighting, they would often get rewards like jewelry, money, and special weapons. If a gladiator was really popular, they might even get their freedom. The best gladiators were legends in the arena. They were respected by their fellow fighters and feared by their opponents. In the past, gladiators fought against dangerous animals like bears, lions, and elephants. Some of them were really big and scary. In the 1st century AD, a gladiator named Leo killed 18 elephants in the arena. That's a very impressive record. The Romans enjoyed watching the gladiators fight the lions because it was dangerous and exciting. The lions were huge and powerful, but the gladiators were brave and skilled fighters. The sight of a gladiator standing in the middle of the arena with a sword raised high was both thrilling and terrifying. The roar of the lion echoed through the stands as the two fighters circled each other. It was a tense moment, and the crowd held their breath as the lion lunged forward. Throughout history, gladiators have fought against all kinds of animals in the arena. It wasn't just lions and elephants. They faced bears, leopards, poisonous snakes, and even camels. It was a dangerous job, but these gladiators were up for the challenge. The audience loved watching them fight and cheer loudly as they battled the beasts. Gladiators weren't just fighters, they were performers. They put on shows in the arenas, and people came from all over to see them. It was a spectacular sight to behold as these brave men faced off against ferocious animals and each other. The cheers and applause of the crowd filled the air as the gladiators fought valiantly. Now I want to hear from you. What do you think? Did you like the video? Don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. Thanks for watching.